So this is the fuse box. When I went to do the starter, this starter relay was grounded through a neutral safety switch off the Dodge Automatic, and I wasn't sure which wire ran that safety switch, so I just grounded it out myself with a wire and put it to here. So now when you turn the key, it sends power to the starter. And then I mounted the fuel filter and the power steering. I just used some black zap straps, tied them up. I bolted the fuel filter down by the battery box. There was a bolt access. I bent this tab over, I forget what was mounted there with the Dodge, but I mounted the Volkswagen bottle for the rad level on it. I used the Volkswagen cooling system bottle for a holding tank, and then the Dodge rad cap, I just plugged it off so that it wouldn't it had an overflow bottle, so I disconnected that part, but the cap still works at 15 pounds. So if it heats up more than 15 pounds, it'll vent off. And also the Volkswagen cap has its own vent. And they didn't know how many pounds it held, but it should just go off if it gets too hot. I have the Dodge heat sensor right here, and that's the Dodge wiring. And then I just ran it into the heater hose because it's always going. It always runs hot. You just open a little vent door to make the heat come. So I just plumbed that in so I could stick with the Dodge gauges as much as possible. And then for the throttle linkage, I used the Dodge cable, and it had a completely different end, but it was all plastic off the end of the cable. So I took my knife and whittled all the plastic off, and then pulled the Volkswagen end off the Volkswagen cable, and stuck the Dodge cable through it, and stuffed the Volkswagen end, just stuck it in on top of the cable. And then this is all Volkswagen, this is all Volkswagen. But in order to do that, I had to cut the Volkswagen little knob. The cable end was supposed to end inside of here, so I had to have some way of hooking up the cable, this throttle linkage, to the cable. So I used a brake clamp off of an old 10-speed bike and clamped the cable nice and strong. And then I ran a nail through where the cable went. It's a finishing nail, so the head won't come through. And then just bent it around the hole where the other cable brake went for the bicycle, and that holds it really quite well, and it doesn't slip or anything. So that's the linkage. And my fuel lines, I just ran them out to the fuel filter. The fuel filter on the Volkswagen is over on that other side of the engine, but it fit better here. And I also wanted to run the fuel lines up out of the tank. It was handy to come up the driver's side, so that's why they're over here. And there was no space on the passenger side. And then for the airbox, I used the Dodge airbox, and then cut their rubber manifold. They had hoses that came down and bent into the Dodge system, cut it off, and I used a 3-inch sewer connector, black ABS. It fit inside, and then I reduced it to a 2-inch, and then I've got a 2-inch 90, and then a 45 degree street elbow with 2-inch sewer pipe that runs into the 2-inch pipe that goes into the turbocharger. And then just used bits of rubber that was left over off the other two air boxes and clamped it all together so it was nice and tight. So I have the stock Dodge air filter going into the Volkswagen engine. I've still got more wiring and stuff to hook up, some gauges. I just have a temperature gauge working. I don't have the tach working or anything